Hello and welcome to Kurious City. My name is Letty and I'm one of the co-founders of Kurious Arts. This is a podcast all about encouraging people to get curious about what's going on creatively across the city. I will be talking to a collection of individuals and organisations and companies that are making an impact, and it's all about trying to encourage you to get off the sofa and get out into the world. Let's have a listen to who we're talking to today. Hello and welcome to Kurious City. Today we have Ben Carlin, who is one of the co-founders of MegaVerse, which is an alternate reality studio that makes immersive and interactive experience for VR, AR and XR. Ben, hello.
Hello.
Do you want to explain that sentence to us?
Yeah, I guess so. The kind of stuff that we do is all based around kind of like user experience, interactivity, anything with those kind of virtual reality headsets that you put on, make, expansive worlds. We sort of...
So is it like an entertainment thing?
Yeah, it sort of crosses entertainment and art, I think. But we also we're doing quite a lot of work with Sheffield Children's Hospital, building distraction therapy apps using this immersive technology as well, for sort of to just distract kids from treatment and have a more kind of pleasant time. Yeah. So it kind of... I guess at the core of MegaVerse is like making bespoke immersive experiences, and sometimes that is commercially, and then sometimes that's our own stuff. We've got quite a lot of mad creative ideas that we're exploring at the moment.
And when you say we,
yes,
who do you mean?
So John Ingle is the other founder of MegaVerse, and we went to university together, but he wasn't actually on my course. I did drama with his girlfriend, and we did a lot of theatre stuff together, and then we'd bring John in to kind of come and film our promos and stuff, and I don't know, we just kind of got along quite well, and then we left uni, kind of went our separate ways but kept in touch, and then a bit further down the line he saw some of the work that I was doing and he was like, I think we should collaborate, and that's how it all started.
So you've come at this kind of from a theatre perspective,
yes.
Would you say?
Yeah.
Okay, and I ask people on the questionnaire to describe themselves, and I was really interested in some people just put bullet points and other people put a sentence.
Yeah.
And you describe yourself as, there are three that I liked. I liked all of them, but eccentric, unconventional, nerd. So
I was told to put the nerd in there
by
my housemate.
What does that word mean to you?
I think someone that's a little bit kind of very focused on, I don't know, just a bit geeky, a little bit a bit weird, and kind of a bit focused on a particular thing, like almost obsessively. Yeah. I think that maybe
that kind of obsessive. I'm glad you said that word, because it's kind of come, like, it's really interesting reading these, because you get a flavour of someone, and it asks who inspires you, and you mention the likes of Leonardo da Vinci. The people who I'm
not comparing myself to Leonardo
I know,
da Vinci.
No, you're just inspired by him.
Yeah.
But they get kind of very fixated on something. And the other thing you say is that lots of your days are spent in isolation, really, really focusing in on something very, very specific. Mm-hmm. And do you think that you have to be quite eccentric and unconventional to be able to do that and spend those periods of time in isolation working to such a high degree?
I think part of it is just like having a bit of a one-track mindedness to kind of I don't know, I'm really motivated by these sort of mad creative ideas, and I want to sort of see them through, and I kind of think maybe it's super easy to kind of get caught up in maybe another job that you're doing, and then that to be a distraction, whereas I've kind of made my job that.
Yeah, it's a good technique, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's that do what you love thing.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. So these 3 types of days that you have, if you want to just like tell us a little bit more about, we've heard about the Children's Hospital, which is more of an installation, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And tell us a little bit more about Frankenstein.
Yeah, Frankenstein is a live theatre show that put on by the National Youth Theatre at Southwark Playhouse, which happened last month. And essentially very early on, before, it's a new adaptation of Frankenstein as well, where basically it's all gender swapped. So Victor Frankenstein is now Victoria Frankenstein. The monster, instead of it being male, is female, or essentially a female robot. From the future.
Obviously.
And National Youth Theatre sort of came to us because they wanted to do something digital with the text. And basically this opportunity came up where they had some sponsorship to use loads of headsets. And they've got like 300 of these sort of headsets at their disposal.
What, like VR headsets?
VR, virtual reality headsets. And my initial reaction to that was like, I'm not really that sure that this is going to work, because usually when we build virtual reality experiences, they're kind of more platform native. You think about
platform native, right? Yeah. You're just going to have to explain that.
Well,
to me.
So like virtual reality is like a medium in itself, and so does it actually fit into what's a traditional theatre context? Usually when we build like a VR experience, like the medium is incorporated in the creative process and the idea, whereas it's not sort of, the tried and tested theatre model works, and like you
don't just slot a headset halfway through and go somewhere else. Exactly.
My fear initially was, I don't want to make something that's gimmicky, that kind of feels like, and now put on your 3D glasses and we'll get taken into another world. Like that was the last thing I sort of wanted with it. So that was my initial fear. But I said, if we work quite closely with the writer who's adapting the text and the director from the beginning, there could be a way that the headset can be incorporated into the whole language of the play. Mm-hmm. So actually in the production, you see the cast with VR headsets. It's part of their world.
Okay. So is it a sort of futuristic world? Yeah,
it's set like a few years in the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you managed to have 300 people in headsets.
So the actual capacity for Southwark Playhouse in this Traverse setup that we were in was 233.
Okay.
But we had 300 headsets primed and ready, if in case any other headsets like broke or something went wrong. And what happens is the first half of the play is without virtual reality. Then there's a little break. The audience leave, and when they come back in, we've got like this team of virtual reality assistants and the actors. So the virtual reality assistants hand all the actors like all the headsets, and then the actors place them under each chair. The audience members. So then they sit back down, and at a certain point in the second half, everyone's asked to put on the headsets, and they get taken to the Arctic, and then they go inside the brain of the monster for like 7 minutes. So it's not a super long part of the show, but it was also this tension actually when we were first starting with the actors. Are we going to somehow upstage the actors by doing all this VR stuff?
Yeah, and then when it comes back to us, everyone's going to be like, just go back to the Arctic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, are we somehow going to detract? But
and have you got any plans to develop that? Is that going anywhere else, or?
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, actually, how it worked out in the end, it was as a format, and how we integrated it with the onboarding and the offboarding worked. It worked really well, and like I was quite pleasantly surprised with how well it sort of was achieved, and the fact that within 30 seconds, if any headset went wrong, someone was there to give them a new one, and that as a technological achievement in a live theatre show, I think
it's quite groundbreaking, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and I think.
Do you think that the theatre scene is moving towards this kind of thing a bit more? I mean, would you say that digital techniques and technology is being used?
Yes, more? I think at the moment it's starting to be explored more with like some of the very more established theatre companies, like the Royal Shakespeare Company, for instance, have now like a whole digital department, and they've partnered with Magic Leap a mixed reality headset, so it's different from virtual reality.
Why?
So with virtual reality, you're completely shut off from the outside world. You're in a completely virtual.
Oh, okay. So that
world.
It blends the two.
Yes.
Wow.
So mixed reality is you have glasses on and you can see the real world, and then digital objects are overlaid on top. So companies are starting to take it a lot more seriously now because the tech's improved a lot. But I still think, and like a lot of the work that we're trying to build towards with what we've got currently bubbling away, is more of these platform native experiences, which are less about traditional theatre contexts and more about making experiences that use the technology kind of in a more sort of in a less sort of forced way than in a traditional theatre context. Like, because I don't know, in a traditional theatre context, I always just think that anything that you're going to do to that is more like special effects, and it jazzes it up, but it's not creatively as meaningful. Whereas,
okay,
am I going?
No, it's really interesting. I would like to know about this whole show. The podcast series is all about kind of, I suppose, lifting the lid on the cultural melting pot of the city, and trying to understand like what being a creative in the city means on a day-to-day basis. So what would you say is the hardest thing about doing what you do?
The hardest thing, well, currently MegaVerse, we've been going for like a year and a half officially as a company, and I've been doing stuff longer than that, but we don't have a studio space. Okay. So actually one of the hard things, especially when working on quite a big project, is I'm here in Sheffield, my business partner's in London, and like there's a lot of stuff that's like inefficient because we're not in the same space working together.
So you just kind of take it in turns? Yeah,
well, we're constantly on the phone to each other, but like I feel like if we had a bit more of a start and a finish to maybe a day, and we had a kind of creative space to throw ideas around a bit more than working remotely, it would be better. Another thing is just we're not like a traditional company in the sense that there's
no kind of clear path, is there?
Yeah, we're not trying to sell a product.
It's kind of it's so different.
Yeah, like I think the thing that we're very good at is kind of synthesizing kind of almost new formats, utilizing this new technology, and then working with different creative partners like the National Youth Theatre to kind of bring these new formats to life with interesting stories that gel together. Okay. But like at the moment that's so a lot of the time we're fundraising. We're applying for different funds,
And is it quite difficult to get people to actually understand what it is that MegaVerse does?
Yeah. So half the time it is just explaining that, and luckily John's graphic design background as well, like he's super good with being very clear in kind of our pitch decks and documents of like visually explaining. But sometimes it's also really hard to do that without getting someone in a headset. So
what would you say is helpful about Sheffield as a city in terms of being a creative, living and working here, well, for 50% of the time? Or
to be honest, I think that actually once you start tapping into the creative network in Sheffield, and the digital network in Sheffield, even though there's lots there's lots of different companies doing different things, that there is quite like a community around it that's very interested in supporting stuff within Sheffield. So like I feel like I think the network here is super helpful, because I think you'll have one conversation and then you'll get introduced to someone like quite quickly, in the city.
It's sort of supportive and collaborative, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think also Sheffield specifically, it hasn't. I don't know. It's not quite like as matured, maybe say, as sort of like Manchester or Leeds. Like, and
why do you think that is?
I don't know really, but I quite like it.
Yeah,
I like it in the sense that there's flexibility and there's room for people to really take ownership of. It's not too established.
Actually develop and grow something and start something and get the support.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if we were to try and do MegaVerse in London, it just would never have happened. Like, I think for one, financially, like just like Sheffield is a way better place to start a new kind of creative thing, because your outgoings are a lot less, which a very practical one. But also, it's a lot easier to tap into that creative and digital network and get something.
I mean, it is booming, isn't it? The digital, as you say, and the gaming scene.
Yeah,
is massive.
I think a prime example of that is our work with Sheffield Children's Hospital, which kind of came out of some people seeing some of my earlier work that I got Arts Council funding for, which was like a virtual reality experimental play, essentially, and then doing a few other bits. The Children's Hospital kind of, through word of mouth, got to know about what we were doing, and then conversations were started kind of like that, which I don't think it just happens the same way in a lot of other cities. Yeah.
And while we're on the topic of cities, what do you like to do in the city when you're not creating these virtual reality worlds and sending us all to the Arctic?
Yeah, to be honest, I've been really neglecting playing my guitar like recently. Like, that's, especially growing up, music was a massive part of my life, and acting and
you
stuff.
talk about your family and sometimes they don't get to see as much of the creative mad side of you because they're not necessarily as passionate about the things that you're passionate about, which you state as theatre and music.
I think
so. Where does this mad creative streak come from? Is it?
I really don't know.
There's no one else in the family.
Okay, so it started out with, already unconventionally when I was younger, I did a bit of football and stuff, but I wanted to do gymnastics.
Just not happy with football. Yeah, I'm doing the gymnastics.
I'm doing gymnastics. I want to do some backflips. I want to do some, vaulting. So I started off doing that, and then through that I met someone that was doing this theatre group, and I thought, I don't know. I just naturally, I've always sung, and so I thought, maybe I should try that. And then that just spiraled into my love for that. Was back in Cornwall.
It's interesting because, again, through your questionnaire, it comes across that, when you say I love music and I play the guitar and I sing and I'm gonna have a bash at gymnastics as opposed to like just hiding in a football team. Yeah. That gives the impression that you're quite a gregarious, outgoing and confident person, but the way that you describe yourself, I think you say that you think that very few people know you properly and that you find big social situations fairly stressful. Do you think the people listening that know you would be surprised by that?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe a bit. I think it's weird because it stems from even so at school. I was like head boy, so I should have. I know. There we go. Just get that in the podcast. But so I was very outwardly confident, but actually painfully quite shy inside and like quite very anxious. And I think I've kind of, through the years sort of grown out of that a bit, but still, and that in a weird way might actually be partly to do with, my dad's a pretty mad, eccentric guy. He's got Asperger's as well. He's not like
he's the introvert without all that kind of razzle dazzle on top to disguise it.
And also, even my mum, I kind of think she never she would always meet up with a couple of friends, and kind of, it's weird. It's weird how you kind of start to think, oh yeah, I can kind of see why
myself
maybe
and my parents. Yeah.
more like that.
But you say that you have that your mum's very supportive, or your whole family's very supportive of what you do, even if they don't necessarily understand it.
That's it. Like, they're all super supportive, and in a way, probably like there's always a slight disappointment that I haven't carried on with maybe performing more, because they loved all the gymnastics. Yeah, I think they just loved watching me in stuff.
Yeah.
And even though I feel like it, for everyone when they're younger, you gravitate towards the big shiny, but like I feel like I've genuinely found something that I'm like super more so than the acting. It's not.
Do you think that the acting helped you find it? Are you glad that you went through that route?
Well, the acting is so embedded, like all that creative process with the acting and devising theatre. It's so embedded in the like DNA of like the company.
Yeah, because you mention in your inspirations the people that inspire you. Companies like Invisible Flock and Punch Drunk.
Yeah.
So that must have been a kind of quite an interesting through line in terms of the immersive experience.
Yeah, I think so. I think that whole thing with I think it's because I grew up in a house that was like actually quite technology driven. My dad was always like building little robots, and we always had computers.
Like you do.
As you do in the garage.
What does he do with the robots?
Well, we went on Robot Wars when I was a kid.
Oh, what? Right, you're going to have to explain. You're just going to have to talk a little bit more about that, please.
Yeah.
Did you win?
We got semi-finals. Pretty good.
It's pretty great, isn't it?
Yeah. No, and they're building more robots as we speak.
Who?
My
the
dad
family?
And some other people in Sheffield, in an underground cellar, and it's the kind of like it's like basically the shed at the bottom of the garden, but instead of
painting
plants and painting, it's steel and metal and motors and pillar drills and
it's perfect.
God knows what. But I've always had this like technology thing, and my older brother's a massive computer gamer, so I always used to watch him, and I used to get quite to play all of those games. And then I guess I was always the performer, and loved the music and that kind of side of stuff, and it weirdly just
it's a kind of marriage of all of those things, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I think maybe Punch Drunk was one of the catalysts for that, where it was like, oh, you don't have to. I mean, to be honest, even throughout when I was at kind of college and uni, I was always trying to experiment with what the audience could be and giving them agency and stuff. And then I think seeing the Punch Drunk stuff like made me think, oh, you know what, theatre can be so much more than this traditional setup.
Yeah.
And I don't want to bash that whole traditional setup because it has a massive audience, but it's just not particularly what I'm that bothered about.
Yeah.
So when I was like, oh yeah, you can build interactivity and all of these things, and then in my third year of uni, it was kind of when virtual reality was just starting to come back.
How do you think, what do you think virtual reality, like, what impact is it going to have on us in, say, 10, 15 years' time? Like, how long do you think it's going to take before it becomes a fairly mainstream part of our daily lives, if that is what you think is going to happen? Or?
I think it will, but it's like at the moment we're seeing these clunky headsets, it's almost like when you see like the first generations of computers, they're like these massive, big clunky devices, and they had they're still being used, but like that's where we are with virtual reality. They're big clunky things, and like we're just starting to see a way through that with new headsets like the Oculus Quest, which is like, it's like £400, but for that you don't have to buy a PC, but you get to do a lot of the functionality that you would normally have previously have had to have bought a PC for to be able to run it, and that price point is going to keep coming down.
Yeah.
But also,
and soon we're all just going to be able to like go down to Specsavers and pick up a pair of VR specs.
Yeah, well, it will be like, so the form factor will come down in size dramatically.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what Magic Leap are trying to do, and it's what HoloLens are trying to do with. Sorry, it's Microsoft have their own version of this mixed reality thing called HoloLens as well.
Okay.
So it's only a matter of time before Apple. We know they're working on a mixed reality device, and
I don't know whether to be pleased or stressed by that.
So okay, I think the way to think about it is like any technology, it could be deeply dystopian.
Yeah.
But it could also be absolutely amazing.
Because you do talk about transhumanism. That's something I ask people what in life they're curious about. And
love a bit of transhumanism. I'm going to
I'm
upload my brain to the cloud.
I had to Google it. And for those of you that would also have had to Google it, transhumanism is a theory that human race can evolve beyond its current physical and mental limitations by means of science and technology. Mm-hmm. Which is obviously fascinating, but also terrifying.
Okay, so this phone in our hands, that is the first stage of... I mean, it's not the first stage, but it's quite like this phone, we're already augmenting the human experience because our memories and the way that we think is changing because, like, you Google stuff all the time now. I
asked you, and the last thing you Googled was...
Oh, no! It's so bad. It's because I watched... Okay, yeah.
No, carry on. I'll tell you what you Googled in a minute.
I was on Apple Music, and it's pretty mainstream. Well, there's the Ed Sheeran thing. Yeah. And look, I know a lot of people hate him.
I think he's fine.
But I actually...
Look, all right.
I think people are very snobbish with their bashing of Ed Sheeran.
But you actually specifically Googled, is Ed Sheeran's Supermarket Flowers song about his mum? Is it?
It's not, no. It's about his grandma.
Fine. Similar.
Which is still, it makes sense, but I was just like, oh my god, Ed Sheeran's mum's died.
I can see why.
But grandma, it's still really sad, but it's more manageable.
Yes, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Can you just go back to that thing that you were saying about the phones?
Okay. So this little device in your hand,
you.
It's already augmenting the human experience by like being able to know everything instantly in the palm of your hand. What's the difference with this just being in your brain? Or but like in a really like slick Apple kind of way, where you open the package and all you have to do is just like click a button and it goes into your head. But what if it goes wrong? Yeah, no, that's the problem. That is a real problem. But then,
going back to this, the human race's current limitations. That's what the dictionary states. Mm-hmm. What do you think our humans' current limitations are?
Well, I mean, I think...
Are we limited, or are we just limited in the context of technology and robots?
I think, like, humans always create technology to help them solve something,
mm-hmm.
And I think, like, the evolution of the phone is going to be something that's a wearable device. It's making it easier and easier to just connect with people, ideas, and the barrier to entry sort of gets lowered. And already how dependable are we on our phones for modern life?
For everything.
And because the world's got way more complicated, and you almost need.
It's got a lot faster, hasn't it?
It's got a lot faster. Do you need this? Maybe we should all unplug. But then no, because we need to be an interplanetary species. We need to move past, what's happening on this planet because it's all gone to rubbish.
Yes.
Anyway,
the thing that you'd forgotten until just now was that you needed to vote. Did you manage to get there in time?
I did vote. It didn't really matter though, did it?
No. Well, we won't dwell on that.
No.
I just want to finish on for people that don't know Sheffield, or have you got any hot tips about where they should go to in Sheffield, and also the kind of creatives and creative activity that they should have a little look at, or the people that are doing something innovative and exciting?
Absolutely, yes.
Go on then.
Okay. So first,
a bit of a put you on the spot question, isn't it?
No, I think what I really love about Sheffield particularly is it's managed to retain proper pubs, but not like in a sort of, I don't know, weird old man kind of traditional. It's more like they've managed to retain such charm and kind of like unpretentiousness. Is that a word?
I'm going to say yes.
Yeah.
Is it, Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's places like the Blake, the Red Deer, the Rutland. I would say to go and visit these places because what they're amazing for as well is they have such a diverse group of people in them. They've got from kind of all ages, students, like...
They feel contemporary but with managing to encompass some kind of history into it.
Yes. And they've not been spoonsified.
No.
Because
Apparently spoons are going into hotels next. Heard that on the radio. That cheered me up. Not.
But this is it. Like, I feel like spoons just sucks the life out of any building and makes it generic as hell. And I just think Sheffield's been... There's such a great sort of folk scene as well that a lot of these places kind of really support. And, amazing beers in all of these kind of little kind of local pubs. In terms of the arts... When I moved to Sheffield, so graduated from uni, moved to Sheffield, moved in with my parents for a little bit because they moved it up from Cornwall. Anyway, you don't need to know about it. And
so you've been here for how long?
I've been here, I don't know, since I was 5 or 6 years. Okay. Yeah. I started off doing stuff at the Theatre Deli, or it's called the Theatre Delicatessen back then, which was on the moor.
Yeah.
And it had just started, which was like this little... pop-up theatre venue that was in the old Woolworths building in the moor, and that has now grown. It's in a different space now. It's still kind of at the end of the moor, but like that's a really good place to start with, like really interesting new theatre, and you meet a load of cool creative people from that. Mm-hmm. Another one is Food Hall.
Yeah,
that's an amazing one. Yeah, and then there's places music-wise like I don't know if it's still called Audacious Art Experiment or if it's changed the name, but there's also like Delicious Clam.
Yeah.
Lots of these kind of smaller things that have a massive community.
They've got integrity, haven't they? That's it. That's the thing about Sheffield. It's got integrity.
Yeah.
Right.
There we go.
Benjamin Carlin, thank you very much for talking to me today.
That's all right.
A Kurious Arts production.